Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
You are listening to the Brilliance Business Show, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler, and today on the show we have Mark Layder, the Business Connector. Our topic today is a radically different way to design a business. I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you today, Mark.
Hi, I'm looking forward to it as well. Two Marks together. Before I get started, Mark, I just need to make a legal disclaimer that Mark is not offering legal advice or legal assistance. So let's get started with the show. Mark, can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business? Yeah, of course, Mark. It comes from, rather than me talking about coaching and years of background, it comes to a very simple headline, which is there are millions of people who'd like to get into business who are frightened of it because the whole model around business is that people fail in it. And the problem today is that, again, you've got huge amounts of businesses that are failing. And in our opinion, that's unnecessarily. So our business is about giving people a completely different approach to the way that they design a business, because from that base, they've then increased their chances significantly. So we're effectively in the business redesign, or a completely new approach to way of doing business, if you like.
I hear you. And it's been really hard times for businesses over the last year, Mark. So I imagine that your service is really in need and really in demand, because there's so many more businesses that are going to be failing, isn't there?
Well, obviously COVID has had a huge impact on that situation, but the problem was there before COVID kind of drew attention to it, and it's got, in American terms, 10x. It's gone completely off the charts, as you say. And it's because there was a fault hardwired into the way we design business that has led to this over many years, because we've had business schools, we've got government-backed type business help that's been there that in the UK has failed, certainly. And that then you've got all kinds of tools and everything else today. There's never been better times to do this and have better support and get into business for less risk. But the failure rate has gone up during that time. So yes, if part of what we see is that's such a waste for people and damages almost the national confidence. So if we can address that, then everybody gains. So, yes, we make a business out of it, but by bringing together people to a completely different approach to the way they go about setting up businesses, which when we start to talk to them about it, it's one of those, I kind of knew this moments, but they've been taught not to follow what is much more natural to people in seemingly the way that we teach people to set up and develop their businesses. So, yeah, there's a huge need, and this piece, particularly this different approach to business, suits the vast majority of people that want to get into business without trying to turn them into things that they're not, that an awful lot of marketing does today. It tries to turn business owners into huge generalists doing all kinds of jobs, but actually they just want to do the bits of the business that they really like. So until we go to that place, we couldn't start to redesign how we all think about setting up businesses and then helping people do that accordingly.
Yes. Who are your customers, Mark? What clients do you serve?
Primarily, remember, we've got sort of two divisions. The franchise side, or the business opportunity side, is the people who want to be trained in the new profession of BizConnectors, who are the people that then go out as our distribution force, if you like, to reach our ultimate customers, who are either existing business owners, and often they've got lots of passion, lots of drive, but they struggling to grow the business. They're in that kind of wanting to get beyond the basics of a business. So that's a big part of our customer base. But there's also what a buddy of mine calls lonely seat people, which is people who've been in business for a while and they've been doing it for so long and often on their own, they need to look at that different approach to get beyond this flat line and that position of the lonely seat of not having anybody to talk to and get to the next level. So there are main customer areas with a little nod to a new area that we tend to pass people on to other people that we work with, but we definitely want to help people who are in that I'd love to go into business, but I'm frightened, because we've got, through our wider community, lots of ways to help that particular person without them having to find thousands and thousands of pounds. In fact, they can get started for free.
And we never stop learning. So if there are people out there that feel that they need the support, always ask for help and guidance, because self-improvement, self-development is an ongoing journey. And if there are people out there who can help support to get your business success, that's a win-win. Now, Mark, do you recall a specific aha moment that led to the launch of your business?
It's a good question, that one, Mark. That there's a latter-day American sort of, I guess he's kind of a philosopher, fellow called Buckminster Fuller, that certainly Americans will know the name of, and some of us over here do too. He's nicknamed Bucky Fuller. And he had this phrase of, if there's a job that you think needs doing and you keep coming back to it and nobody's done it, but for some reason you keep looking at it and going, that job needs doing, well, it may be your job. So in this case, the whole BizConnectors thing and the whole business redesign thing, it seems to be, I keep coming back to it through many, many clients. So it wasn't a specific aha moment. It was years of seeing businesses struggle with the same problems that said, we've got to design this differently. So it was lots of areas where now people, particularly in business, in most of the developed countries, they were taught to go and get lots of qualifications and they can do that, and they're good at the technical stuff of what they do in business. But what it's meant is that the business world swung completely away from kind of the commercial and what we used to call sales, what we call connecting, business connecting, the relationship building side of business. So it's been years really in the coming, but it kind of just connected, if you like, latterly in the last few years is when we started to name it BizConnectors, because people started to really understand they needed to look at different ways of building their business, and that having access to a business connector was the first step towards doing that. So I suppose that's the latter day aha moment, based on the years of the Bucky Fuller of, it looks like this is my job.
And what really motivates you to jump out of bed every single day?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that question. And I'm a bit of a contrarian on this, because I'm not the world's fastest starter, I have to confess, but I am a great finisher. I'll be the one that will be working at 3:00 in the morning. So I'm the owl, not the lark. But in the sense of your question, and I obviously understand your question, that what motivates me is this whole thing about that, whether it's the years of education that people have got, that they're going, well, they've got their badges, they've got their education, they've got skills, but they're still not being able to put it together. So that's my fascination. Is there's a word called entelechy, which is like turning your potential into reality. And it's almost like, I would say, is the new area of study, because so many people have got all of the things that they were told to get, but the formula isn't working, whether it's the business formula or their wider life formula. And even some of the mental health issues that people, are reporting more through COVID, like there's something missing. That's what fascinates me. The whole, what is it about? We live in a time of huge abundance, and certainly again in the developed countries, but the happiness rates are reported are almost at the lowest they've ever been. So it's that on the one hand, opportunity is huge, but fear is huge too. And it was before COVID as well. It's just exacerbated that. That's what fascinates me. If I can just make a little dent in helping people to deal with that, with formulas and methods and approaches and philosophies that they can truly feel that they're working closer towards their real potential, fancy word, entelechy, then that's always been my long-term buzz, Mark.
And what sets your business apart, Mark, and what unique need are you filling for your clients?
This we kind of knew this one, but it's been said a lot in the last 6 months, and that fundamentally, people are sort of doing this, but I think we lead with it, that ultimately we almost don't look for just what used to be called standalone customers. Of course, we transact with people, but our whole approach, whether it's a customer or client who comes in as a paying customer originally, but in our model, that same paying customer can also be a supplier that we promote. So what seems to be coming back from other people telling us, that reaffirmed a kind of a belief or a philosophy that we had, is that we're looking for partners, whether it's, you and I do some joint work together, and I bring other people to you and stuff. That to me is how business, it's sort of always worked that way in the olden days, yes. But we over-engineered it now. And that collaboration piece means that we are forming a place where there is real business trust and core values that people are in a alignment with, which means that we're in the business of finding partners to grow their businesses, in which case that grows ours. So it's a very two-way street, not the look for customers to give me a couple of grand and I've had a good result in the short term. We're looking for ultimately people, by partnering with people, we're creating a different type of business community. That seems to be what sets us apart.
I agree with you totally, Mark. Joint ventures, collaboration, coming from great ethics, trust, loyalty. It's really, really important now more than ever. Can you share a few more detail on the kinds of services you offer?
Again, at the customer user end, because obviously the franchise end is obviously we look to find the right people that want to carry our message and then support them, train them as best as we can. But then they go out and work with our ultimate customers, who are the business owners and the likes. And we primarily are in manufacturing. Some people might know the term just in time. It became just in time manufacturing, and it was a way of getting rid of big warehouses of stock and just having the production line ready for the stock that it needed to help the business run. And that was, it was a big sort of name of probably the 80s and 90s. Well, in a way, the final sort of end product of what we offer to the end user client is a just in time business development process, that everything a business owner could need in line with the plan we help them build, which we call the simple plan that works. We then have got trusted suppliers and partners that we can get the right tools at the right time and typically the right budget, because again, there's no point selling somebody a 10 grand super duper bells and whistles that if they're in a market that can't afford that. So you've got to build a bespoke process, but ultimately there's never been a method for business owners when they're working on their business and trying to develop it, a just-in-time method of getting them the right tools at the right time to their plan. That's probably the core, and then everything else is consulting to get that process worked out and then going back with the plans. But that's at the core, helping them what we call BizMap, where they're at now and where they want to be, and then being able to get the resources without taking on huge costs to grow their business. So it's like a business blueprint, ultimately made up by all kinds of our partner suppliers that helps them scale their business. Our products and services are embedded into all of that process, depending on what the client needs from the diagnostics that we do.
And why do you feel your service is especially important in today's modern world?
The headline, again, on that one, Mark, is because the people have been told, as I mentioned before, to go and get all sorts of qualifications. And, to use one example, whether it's qualifications or even the program, in the UK called Dragon's Den and the State Shark Tank, that you see these very experienced business professionals fighting over a percentage of your business if they think it's a good idea. But that model is flawed in that classically you'll see an inventor who's got some kind of invention that one or two of the dragons, the sharks really like. But then they start to berate them for saying, well, why haven't you sold more of it? And the inventor has either said it or it's implied, because I'm not very good in sales. So you would think from their structure as the dragons and the sharks that they could do that, but instead they try and turn the inventor into a salesperson, and we know that doesn't work. So that's the need almost. It's the 80% of business owners that say they are not remotely from a sales or marketing background, but everybody's trying to turn them into that. And you see it in the business schools. You see it certainly on the programs that I just mentioned. That's the point of difference, that build a business around what we call the business work style of the owner and the other key stakeholders that are building it, which is what leads to that completely different approach to building a business. So the need's been there for a long time because the failure rate's been there, but it has exacerbated hugely. Again, COVID's added to it, but the trend was massively there beforehand. It's just a completely different approach to building a business.
Now, Mark, I know you have lots and lots of client success stories. Can you just pick one that stands out to you?
Well, I'm going to do two. They're short, I promise you, but there's two because there's the BusinessConnector franchise side. And when we were testing this model a few years ago, we had a young guy who was building his business part-time, and he went off traveling to South America. And because of some of the royalty incomes that he'd already set up from just one product in the sort of service he offered to his clients, just one program, he went traveling for 3 months. And when he came back, there was more money in his bank account than there was when he left. And he paid for his trip. And he paid for his trip to South America. So that's the kind of the BizConnector side of it. But the business owner side of it, there's a famous example of one of our clients who direct marketing, and he offers other business opportunities. And he was coming to the end of the year, which is a very quiet period for people to get into new business opportunities. And I just said to him, have you ever thought of offering a coaching helpline, just like one little idea to help people get into going through the process of getting their business opportunity going? He'd offered technical helplines before, but he'd never offered, not where you buy your lists, all that business stuff, the personal stuff of the difficulties people were experiencing. So that was just something that I suggested to him. I met him up down in Oxford when we were doing some other your type of work, PR work. And he said, I've got a confession to make, or it's actually, something to share. And he said that he'd had his best ever month, 4 times his best month in what was typically his quietest month. And when they surveyed their customers, it was that one little tip of just offering something to his customers that helped them go through the difficulties they had of kind of changing behaviors of taking on a new business opportunity. So 400% growth, or 400% of your best ever achievement in typically one of your quietest ever months is not bad, I guess, is what sticks out in my mind.
Definitely not. They're great successes, and it's just great listening to your passion as well, Mark. And I always love a great success story. And how do clients typically hear about you? And are there certain life moments that usually lead to them seeking you out?
From a marketing perspective, the place that we're most active is LinkedIn. To us is a great place because you find, serious business people looking for serious help, but also in our sense with having making the whole process a bit of fun. But from a marketing perspective, we're big LinkedIn fans in that way. From a more general business, but we actually did an exercise recently that the huge percentage, albeit that we use LinkedIn as that sort of front of the shop windows or billboards to connect with people, relationships that we started from there that may not be business today, but 2 years later, 5 years later, we've kept in touch. And it's that keeping in touch bit that has led to huge percentage of referrals, and not only referrals from referrals, and that we can follow in, for 5 levels deep. And I think that comes from, again, it's something before we ever talked about communities and collaborations and stuff, that my wife, that was very good at staying in touch with people from our courses and things before the days of Facebook, made that a lot easier. I think it's always been our relationship focus that has meant that our overall desire to help first before we're trying to just sell things all the time, because now in more sort of efficient language, that partnering approach has meant that hugely through the investment in relationships means that the massive level of business to us, ultimately they're referrals of one form or another. And it never ceases to amaze me why an awful lot of other business people will say that it's referrals, but if you ask them for their system of how they get more of them, they haven't got that, which takes us back to our core. The businesses aren't connected and designed correctly. So that's by far and away, with LinkedIn being the little pulse of just meeting new people and saying hi and shaking hands online, as it were, that driving the referral base of what we do is hugely how we meet new people.
I agree totally. Referrals are a great way and a great sign of a job done well. And it's very true. You need those systems in place to get those referrals. Having the right systems make the business run in a great way. Mark, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. Is there anything we did not cover that you would like to share?
No, not in the time slot that we've got available. I would just sign off with saying that, that there is help out there for people now to look at their businesses differently. And that classic example now of we're not in the world of how you get things done now. There's so much information. There's so much tools out there. It's who can help you now is the pivot, or the word of last year, wasn't it? Changing direction and being able to adapt. Yes. And there are now communities like us, I guess. I obviously think we're unique, but to really trigger business owners and people who want to get into that, to really think about they can design the business of their dreams on, get this, less than the cost of one average wage employee. And just to give people that hope that at the end of the tunnel, it's a light. It's not another train speeding towards them. There is a different way, but they just have to think differently away from all of that conditioning and get around people like you, get around people like me, because it's a different way of doing business today. And there are people that will help them if they're ready.
Mark, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. What is the best way for our listeners to contact you or get a hold of you?
Well, I think, the easiest way is always you find me on LinkedIn, as I say, at linkedin.com. And you put that little in, but it's Qualywood, or just put my name in, Mark Layder. And then whilst it's a test website and it's being redone, the new one will be available. But BizConnectors, as in BIZ connectors.org, will be all singing, all dancing in a couple of weeks. And it's there in a very basic beta test form at the moment.
Mark, thank you so much for being my guest today and being on the Brilliance Business Show.
No, I enjoyed it, Mark. We will do many more with other buddies that I will connect you with.
You are a man of your word. You walk the walk and talk the talk. It's been my absolute pleasure. You have been listening to the Brilliance Business Show, conversations with leading experts in business.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.